On this month's episode, we are going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Toonami's 20th anniversary, Logan, Beauty and the Beast, Power Rangers, and much more. So strap in and get ready to go beyond the start button!
Hey Arcaders, it's UberNerd527 here with
Danny, the ultrasonic player.
And we're so excited for you to be here at the Beyond the Start Button podcast. This is the podcast where we talk about nerd life through sharing what we're passionate about, right? We talk about comic books, manga, anime, TV, movies, and of course, video games. We're so happy that you're here today. We're so happy that you're listening, wherever you're listening to, because we're now in all kinds of different podcatchers right now. You can hear us on Google Play. You can hear us on a podcatcher called Satchel now, so you can download the podcast on there. You can hear us all over the place. So I'm very happy that you guys are here, that you guys are listening. What about you, Danny? You're ready to go, man, today. Today's going to be a great episode, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, you have no idea. I'm really looking forward to this episode, big time.
Now, our main topic of this episode today is we are going to talk about the Nintendo Switch. Yes!
Yep.
Which we're both very excited about. We both really, really love, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But we're going to start off our podcast first with our press starts, which is our little segment where we talk about what we're passionate about for this month. And then we're going to move on to a very quick Pokemon Rewind. And then after that, of course, we're going to go ahead and talk about the Nintendo Switch and all that entails. All that it entails. So if you haven't got your Nintendo Switch yet, because I know there's a lot of you out there who haven't, and we're very sorry you didn't, but Nintendo is working hard on it. We've already seen that Mario and Luigi have been working nights and weekends, and what else there? They just have an occasional lasagna break, right?
Yep.
So, they're working, so you'll get your Switch eventually, but if you wanted to know if the Switch is a viable system, is a system that you should go out and get right now, please, listen to the rest of this podcast, because I think this is going to be some really good information for you, today. So, alright. Now, with that out of the way, I think it's time we should get started. What do you think, Mr. Danny?
Yep. I think it's time we get started, and let's do it.
Alright, so let's press start. Alright, in today's press start segment, we are going to be talking about a whole bunch of just what we're passionate about. So if you've never listened to us before, this is basically what we've been passionate about this month. Our podcast is kind of a monthly podcast, and we just talk about everything that we've been passionate about this month. Now, we're super passionate about the Switch, but again, that review will be coming at the end of the podcast. But right now, let's talk about non-Switch related things, shall we? And I'm going to kick it off with another Nintendo property that we will be talking about at length near the end of this. But this has nothing to do with that, actually. I'm going to be talking about the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess manga that just came out. It just got published from Viz Media, who do a lot of really great manga and anime. They do a lot of English translations for it. I have to say, I was a big fan of Twilight Princess. It is not it's probably in my top 5 Zelda games. I think my number 1 is Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Hands down. I think my number 2 is Wind Waker. I love Wind Waker, and it's such an underrated Zelda game.
It really is. It really is. And I was one of those fools who actually had initially overlooked it and just, dismissed it. Fortunately, though, I stand corrected. It is an awesome game and extremely underrated.
Very, very. And of course, I think probably my number 3 would be Twilight Princess. I really, really enjoyed Twilight Princess. It had a great story. It had a vast world. I think probably one of my favorite companion characters, which was Midna. I really, really liked Midna. I just really love that game. Well, I heard probably about the end of last year that they had already published this in Japan, and that it was going to be coming to the States soon. Now, I will say some things about the manga. It does follow from the volume that I did read, because the first volume's only out right now. I think it's going to be more than one volume. I don't know how many volumes it's actually going to be. But for the first volume, it follows probably the first first, maybe about quarter of the game. So up until Link actually gets turned into a wolf for the first time. If you haven't played it, sorry, spoilers. Been out for a while, so,
yeah.
It's been out since the launch of the Wii, so yes, you've had time. Alright, so anyways, the volume that I read, goes up to where he's turned to a wolf. Now, I really like this manga because it really does set up the story very well. It gives Link a little bit more of a character because, usually Link is kind of I would say a bland character on purpose because he's you.
Yeah.
And that's why he doesn't really talk very much in the game and he doesn't say very much is because it's you.
Basically, I always saw Link as sort of like your avatar of sorts in that world. Like you are him. You're basically just making your way, traveling the world and just seeing things, which is nice because for those of you who don't know, my exposure to the Legend of Zelda was not via the games, but rather a certain 80s cartoon. Much to my own chagrin. So I really had, initially in the beginning, I had a very, very, a not so high opinion of Link. But fortunately though, the video games corrected that and said that no, the real Link is not that character in that animated show. He's actually quite shy, and for some reason seems to attract more women wherever he goes without even trying. But hey, that's okay. That's cool.
Oh, you have no idea. Wait till you get to Breath of the Wild. All right, so before we get into too deep, I really did enjoy this manga. I will have to say though, every other adaptation of the Legend of Zelda games has been an all ages comic book. Not very violent. Probably the same, any kind of, usual epic that kids write. However, Twilight Princess is different, okay? Twilight Princess is a little more violent than has been previously. But I think it fits the tone of the game. So I'm perfectly okay with it. I won't spoil too much, but there is a very violent thing near the end of the comic. And yeah, it surprised even me. Because, yeah, that happened. So, if you haven't played Twilight Princess, I think this would be a good introduction. You get a little bit more character with Link, and I really, really enjoyed that. So, I just wanted to talk about that real quick. So, Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess manga, absolutely wonderful. The artwork is amazing. The story is really, really good, and I highly suggest it. I'm gonna keep getting this. This is on my subscription list, at Crumb's World. So, there you go. Alright. So, let's move on to my next segment. This is gonna be a bigger chunk, of my segment. This is why I only have 2 subjects this month. So, I really quickly wanted to talk about this because I think that even though they made a big deal about it on TV, I don't think this got the big fanfare that it should have. Okay? What I'm talking about is Toonami. This year, they celebrated their 20th anniversary. Yes, 20 years of Toonami. That really strikes me as, wow, because I can remember back when Toonami first started. Yeah, I can remember, hearing about it, and now I didn't have cable growing up, but Toonami was such a huge part of my childhood, because I remember, when I would go to a friend's house, or I would go to, an aunt's house. I remember one time I was on vacation in, I believe it was North Carolina. Huh. And I stayed at our, my dad's cousin's house. We spent, a week there at their house. And that whole week we spent there, because they had a huge house. The whole week we spent there, they had cable and they had Toonami, and so I would sit there and watch Toonami. And how much of an impact do you think Toonami has made on the public now? I think it's made a huge impact because I don't think, without Toonami, I don't think anime would be as big as it is in America today. What do you think?
I pretty much feel the same way. Because even though, granted, I haven't seen every single anime show, but for the ones that I have seen, it really wouldn't have gotten the exposure, and as a result, the fan bases, if it hadn't been for Toonami, because Toonami really was a driving force in that. There would also be Adult Swim later on, but Toonami really was at the forefront of that, that with anime, and not even just with anime, but even certain other shows that would that would debut on other networks. But as the years would go by, they would make their way to Cartoon Network and specifically on Toonami. Like Batman Beyond, to name one example, and many others too. I don't know though if they ever did show any classic shows on that cartoon block exactly. No, they didn't. No. Okay.
I think the only quote unquote classic show they probably ever showed was probably He-Man and Thundercats. I mean, if you want to get that. But I believe that Toonami, I think Dragon Ball Z would probably not be as big in America.
Oh, no.
If it wasn't for Toonami.
Oh, yeah, hands down.
Because if you remember, before Toonami, it was just in syndication. And people would catch it, watch it, and I think it was big, but not as big as it, once it hit Toonami though, it blew up.
Yeah, it really did.
If you go back into our podcasting history, I actually did a podcast about this probably about 2 years ago, where we talked about cartoon blocks, and it was me and Dave.
And I think it was and I think that was the one where I made my podcast debut.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I still have that episode to this day. So,
so we talked about this, but I don't think I talked enough about how much of an impact that has made on myself, on probably our culture as a whole, and even to the fact where a lot of even English dub companies are kind of matching that tone in their advertisements, and like with Funimation, I've seen that they've really tried to kind of connect to that Toonami crowd. And I think the other thing about Toonami that made it very different from all the other things is that they made it interactive. And this was back before internet. This was back when they had fan art. They had people send fan art, and then they also had like letters being sent, and then they did video game reviews, and they did all this different stuff during the Toonami block. And I think though the one thing that absolutely positively 100% I love the most is when they did the trailers for each anime. And they also did the quick music videos. It was such a different time. And I was really sad when Toonami went away. But at that time, I don't think that Toonami was as big as it was. I think that anime had kind of blended into the culture now. And it was kind of part of it. And I think that it was gone. But we were all kind of sad when they said it was going away. I remember that Toonami was actually my introduction to Miyazaki film, because when I first started working at where I work at, I actually lived with an older gentleman who had a room to rent, and I was renting his room until my apartment was ready, and I stayed at his house for probably about 2 or 3 months. And in that time, he had cable, and so I sat and watched every Saturday night. I would sit down and watch Toonami, and that's how I got introduced to Naruto. That was the first time I ever watched Naruto. I was actually there and watched the U.S. premiere of Naruto on Toonami.
Wow.
Yes, now I'm dating myself. I also watched, it was Justice League Unlimited was on there. Teen Titans was, I think, pretty much done by that time, or at least close to it. I think it was on the last season.
Yeah.
And then they also showed shows like Zatch Bell and Bobo 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 Bobo.
Is that the actual name of the show?
No, it's just Bo 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 Bo, but I just continued to go because I thought it was funny. Which was a weird show in itself, but we're not even going to go because it was basically a parody anime. Oh. They were making fun of everything.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were making fun of everything. So yeah, they were making fun of Dragon Ball Z and the anime in general. It was a weird anime. It made One Piece look weird. Look sane.
Wow.
Sorry, One Piece fans. I didn't mean to offend you. And then one month, one of the months that I stayed there for the whole month, they showcased Miyazaki films. So every Saturday night they would show a Miyazaki film. And that was the first time, the first Miyazaki film I ever watched was Spirited Away. And because I watched Spirited Away on TV, I got really, really excited. And I would watch every subsequent movie after that. So that's how I watched Spirited Away. I watched Nausicaa. I saw some of Princess Mononoke, but I didn't see all of it. And some other Miyazaki movies, but the names are the titles that I watched are escaping me. I know the names of the movies, but I can't think of the ones I actually sat down and watched. But I remember watching Spirited Away for the first time and going, wow, this is amazing. And it was the first time that they had ever premiered this movie on TV. It was a really, really cool month, and because of Toonami, now I have this huge love for Studio Ghibli and a lot of their films that they've done, and it's such a great introduction, but without Toonami there, I never would have watched it. I never would have saw it, but it was such a great thing, and then, Toonami got really big really fast. You started off with Moltar from Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and then turned into Tom, who is the host of it, and then Tom, who is voiced by Steve Bloom, and is continued to be voiced by Steve Bloom.
Yes.
Yay, Steve
Very
Bloom.
good thing. Wait, wasn't he also voiced by another? Wasn't he voiced by another guy before? Because I could have sworn I heard Peter Cullen. Because I could have sworn I heard Peter Cullen at one time.
Peter Cullen didn't do Tom himself. He did all the trailers for Toonami, which, by the way, the trailers for Toonami, I don't care what anime it was, those trailers wanted you, literally pulled you in, and even if you watched the show and the show was crap, you really wanted to watch the show, because those trailers with Peter Cullen's talking about it was just phenomenal. I love him.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because his voice is basically right up there with the late Don LaFontaine's voice. It is a trailer voice, and It's just like, like you said, going back to my own memories, he could basically talk about a scene that when you watch it, it's kind of maybe lame, but he's able to sell it in such a way to where you go, I gotta see this show.
Yeah. And even today, I've gone back and actually watched some of the Toonami ads, and even today I'm like, I wanna watch that. Even if I know the anime is crap, I wanna watch that. Yeah. By the way, just in case for those of you who don't know who Peter Cullen is, he is most famous for doing Optimus Prime in Transformers.
Yeah. And Eeyore at one point.
And Eeyore. So he's a very well-known voice actor. I think he's retired now, pretty much. I know he's doing Optimus Prime in the Transformers movie. Yeah. But I think other than that, he's pretty much retired or whatever. If you don't believe me that he can sell you anything, you know what? I'm gonna cut to a Toonami commercial real quick. I'm gonna cut to one. Just listen to it. Just listen to it for a second. Alright, here we go.
This place is a town of forgetfulness.
40 years ago, everything we knew was destroyed. The face of the planet changed forever.
There isn't anyone who really knows exactly what did happen.
The survivors left without memories. In the aftermath, a new society has formed.
I perform a much-needed job here in the city of amnesia.
In Paradigm City, the rich close themselves into giant domes, while the poor must live without protection. But one man stands for something more, and he does it in serious style.
As a professional, I just try to do my best.
His name is Roger Smith, the Negotiator.
It goes against my principles, but I don't have a choice.
His allies, an android, a butler, and Big O. When they start a job, they always see it through.
Rest in peace. Bye-bye.
Enemies of Paradigm City, beware. There's a new robot on the block.
You're not going anywhere. You're breaking out of war. You're going to get yourself killed. Time to finish this.
Big O, starting Monday, April 2nd at 5:30. Good guys still wear black. Only Toonami.
Okay, so hopefully that convinced you to watch whatever anime I have chosen in editing. So, yeah, I really I love it. And not only that, the music for Toonami is so good that, I even have the soundtrack. I have the soundtrack to Toonami. They don't really sell it. You just kind of have to get online, but it's still
it's the net. There's more. If you can't get it through one way, then there's another way to get music.
Listen, Cartoon Network, if you want to sell me that, I will totally buy it. But you don't sell it, therefore I'm getting it off the internet, okay? Yeah. But, I mean, it's such a big impact because of Toonami, because of the way it is, impacted me, it impacted somewhat you. I know a lot of anime fans are impacted by Toonami, and I was, like I said before, I was really sad when it went away, and we thought it was gone forever. That last broadcast. We thought that was it. And then we didn't hear anything for,
Yep.
2-3 years? There was like a,
Something like that, yeah.
like a lull. There was just
there
a lull.
was.
2-3
then
years.
wasn't there then because I remember Steve Bloom talking about this one time on another podcast.
Right.
He said something about like an April Fool's joke or something, or
okay.
supposedly.
Here's the story as I know it. Now, I don't know if I have it 100% accurate, but here's the story as I know it. Okay? As you know, Adult Swim has taken over Cartoon Network's nightly broadcast. And it's a lot of adult-oriented shows and whatnot. Now, they also started showing off anime and whatnot as well after Toonami did. The thing about Adult Swim is because since it was a adult-oriented thing, they didn't have to edit so much because Toonami was supposed to be for all ages. So they had to edit a lot, especially since they were using anime. And then, either you and I both know that anime can be violent at times. And other things as well. They needed to cut, like, a lot of the anime that they did use, they had to edit it a lot. With Adult Swim, they didn't have to edit it so much because it was adult programming, so they didn't have to worry about editing so much with it, so they could show shows like Full Metal Alchemist and Inuyasha, stuff like that. What Adult Swim did for a while is they did an April Fool's joke every year. Every year, they would show this movie called The Room, which is probably one of the worst modern movies of all time, okay? I've never seen it myself personally, but I've heard stories. In fact, I believe our friends at Riff Tracks did a riff on it, which is also very famous now because of it. So, on April Fool's, every single year, Adult Swim would do this joke where they would play The Room. They would play The Room in its entirety, okay? So, I believe maybe a year or two ago, they did their usual. They started playing The Room, and then all of a sudden, about 10 minutes into the movie, they cut it. Broke in with Toonami, and they showed the original lineup for Toonami, like all the different the shows that they had showed previously. They showed. Well, this surprised pretty much everyone watching because they weren't expecting it. They didn't know it was coming. It was a shock. And when it did show, people were like tweeting and Facebooking and Toonami's on right now. And so people went on and with Toonami, and it became one of the highest rating things for Adult Swim that day. And so what happened was they're like, oh, okay, there's an audience for this. All right then, bring it back. And so the next week, Toonami came back, and ever since then, Toonami has now been a staple of Adult Swim. And every Saturday night, they have the original original Toonami, just as it used to be. They have, of course, upgraded the CG that they use to animate, and Steve Bloom is back as Tom, and they show the anime, and they have really cool ads for it now, and they even do music videos like they used to. They do game reviews. They do fan art now.
Wow.
It's just as it used to to.
Have you submitted any fan art to them?
I have not submitted any fan art to them. I kind of always wanted to, but because of this, now they've shown a lot of anime now, and a lot of it has now hit the mainstream. I know One Punch Man is on there. One Piece, I believe, was on there for a while, and now it's kind of gone away. They're finishing up Naruto. They are also showing JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I believe. And then, of course, they're also showing the brand new Samurai Jack, which I am super excited. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard so many good things about this show. I can't wait to see Samurai Jack. I know it's a little bit more violent than it used to be. I can't wait. I'm super excited. I really am excited for Samurai Jack. But yeah.
I'm just surprised. I mean, it coming back was completely out of left field to me because I thought, okay, I mean, it'd be cool to see it be brought back, but there's no way they're going to do it. And if they do, it probably might be in a movie format. But yeah, as soon as I saw that trailer that they did to announce it, I was just like, holy smokes!
Yeah, and it was kind of a shock to even me because I remember, oh man, I was getting breakfast one morning at a fast food restaurant. I pulled out my phone and Toonami is back was right there, and I was like, what? And so yeah, Toonami is back. It's been back ever since, and because of it now we have a lot more anime that they're showing. I know that they'll be showing, and not only that, they also have a streaming service for free on AdultSwim.com. You can actually stream shows like Sword Art Online and other shows as well, so you can see, other shows. You can see Toonami whenever you'd like. So that's really cool.
Is it via like an app or?
No, you just go on the website as far as I know. So yeah.
Wow.
We need to check that out. That would be something we probably need to do on our next podcast.
Yeah, big time.
So I know me and you are big anime fans, and
and there's a lot of shows that I have a backlog of that again, if you saw my backlog of anime shows that I need to catch up on, your head would explode.
Ruby! Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
I had a little thing. There. Sorry about that. I had a little cough.
Yeah, no, it's okay. No worries.
Sorry. Well, anyways.
No worries.
But I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that real quick, because I think that their 20th anniversary kind of went and left, kind of came and gone, and I just don't think that they got. I really think that the station itself really hyped it up a lot, but I just think that we as a public didn't hype it up as enough.
That's kind of a drag, because come on, it's the 20th anniversary. It came back with a surprise shock. I mean, it broke the internet.
Right. And it was also, fans who have been petitioning for them to come back for years now, and to see it finally come back. And not just come back, but come back big time, is amazing. So I'm very happy for Toonami, and it's just such an impactful. I just wanted to make sure I talked about it on the podcast here. All right, so I've talked enough about Toonami. I'm going to now turn it over to you. So what have you been passionate about this, Danny, the ultrasonic player?
All right, well, lots of things. Oh my gosh, where do I begin? Okay, well, to start... at the beginning. So, in the beginning, to start off with, I actually just got finished replaying and beating Mega Man 2. Now, granted, I do have the game as a compilation on the Mega Man Anniversary Collection for my GameCube. I did download it onto my Wii U, so I played it the old-fashioned way, and boy, was it so satisfactory it was such a satisfaction beating it. And the reason why is that because I played it the old-fashioned way, but not just that, because for those who had the GameCube version of the Mega Man Anniversary Collection, you would know that that if you press the Y button, Mega Man pretty much does rapid fire. So when I played the Mega Man 2 on that one, I pretty much cheated my way through on that game when I got to Dr. Wily himself. So I kind of cheated through, and it felt like a breeze. But this one, it did not feel like a breeze at all. I died many times, okay? But just being able to play it the old-fashioned way and just having to struggle and really sweat for it. I think at one point I felt like my forehead was about to melt. But anyway, make a long story short, playing it old school, with the Wii remote tilted sideways and just trying to make your way through and then finally making it. Again, anybody who's played old school video games, you'll know what I'm talking about. The ending was such a huge payoff. So, but again, I have all seven Mega Man games from the classic series, as well as all three Mega Man X, the first three Mega Man X games. But again, beating the Mega Man 2, man, such a huge payoff at the end. Such a huge payoff. So yeah, that's one thing. And of course, the next thing, and I think you might want to you might want to cover your ears a little bit because this might get a little bit loud. But finally, for the first time since 1995 or 97, if you want to include the second film, but for the first time in 22 years, for all of you who are Power Ranger fans, we finally get a new movie. But not just a regular run-of-the-mill cheesy movie. No. No. This one, in keeping with the tradition of the best superhero films, this one is done with a lot of class and a lot of quality, and more important, a whole lot of heart. And what am I talking about? Well, I am talking about Saban's Power Rangers, which actually just came out pretty much about a week ago, give or take. Well, actually just a few days ago. Thursday, for those of you who actually were able to make it to the early screenings, or Friday for the rest of us. This is not going to be a spoiler-laden thing. It's actually going to be spoiler-free. So no details, folks, or at least not this episode. But essentially, I did get a chance to go on the day of, at 3 o'clock. I tried to go for the early screenings on Thursday, but they were all taken, which really was a good sign to me. To make a long story short, this is a movie that if you were a die-hard Power Ranger fan and who had grown up seeing the original seasons, this is a movie for you. But it's not just a love letter to all of you guys, because this movie does things with a lot of the characters. It adds a lot of new wrinkles to them, which make them a lot more relatable, but yet at the same token, it still stays true to who and what Power Rangers is and what it stands for. So, I mean, essentially, it does pretty much to this what Batman Begins did for Batman after that not so good film that will not be named, but of course it came out in 97, I forget the title. But essentially, it basically takes the camp and replaces it with a lot of substance and heart. And that's the best way to put it. I can't go into any more details than that. If we get a chance to do a spoiler-laden review in a future episode, there will be. We'll do it then. But again, all I can say is that this is a movie you owe it to yourself, that everyone should go see, even those who are not fans, because there's plenty in there to really make it a good, heartfelt, and just popcorn movie. Just a really, really good action movie, plenty of heart, and just, again, lovable characters. And it's done in such a way to where it doesn't feel contrived, it doesn't feel forced, and there's no camp. And there may be a hokey moment, in the film, but still, a little bit of hokiness doesn't hurt. But for the most part, it's just really good, just hard-hitting action, and just again, it also takes pages from certain films, two in particular, or actually, two specific films and one animated series. Now, what am I talking about? Well, Breakfast Club as one influence, and a lot of fans are talking about that one as a big influence. So that one, as well as The Goonies, and for me personally, the first couple episodes of Voltron Legendary Defender from Netflix. Now, of course, if you've seen at least the first two episodes of Voltron Legendary Defender, you'll know where I'm going with this, especially when you go see the film and think of those three things. So yeah, I mean, so again, like I said, if you haven't seen the Power Rangers film, check it out. I think you may be surprised.
I'm sorry that I wasn't able to actually see the movie this week with you, because our original plan was that we were going to see it together and we were going to have like a point-counterpoint thing. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to see it this weekend. But I'm sure I'll probably see it in another one, and maybe we'll talk about it then. But yeah, I'm glad that the Power Rangers get their due for the first time ever. So
yeah, and this time with even more than even what was done in the '95 film, which again, it's something that a lot of us fans have been waiting for, because it's like outside of certain fan films, and especially well-written fan fiction of some of which I have personally written. You don't really get that in the show. I mean, yeah, there have been a few seasons that stand out. I mean, RPM being probably the most notable one. And again, fans who've seen that season, you'll know what I mean. But other than that, we never really had a film, or at least something Power Ranger related, that really did pretty much essentially what Marvel Studios is doing with their characters. For me, I'm glad I got to go see it. I mean, when I first saw the teaser trailer, I was pretty surprised, but it wasn't until I saw the second one that my 9-year-old self just came out and started shaking. And I'm telling you, when I saw that second trailer, I was shaking like a perpetual 9-year-old. And no, I don't apologize for that.
All right, so I have a question for you. So does this set up for a sequel?
Yes, it very much does.
Okay, without giving anything away. So it sets up for a sequel. Is it like the Marvel movies where they're setting up an entire universe, maybe spin-off movies, stuff like that, or just like another movie, another sequel?
See, that's an interesting question, because I actually did see a post where supposedly there may be plans for future films down the road. If Saban Brands feels that they can go that route, they should. But that's always a very, very thin tightrope to walk, because as we know, Sony has been trying to do that, even though granted they only have the rights to Spider-Man, and well, that didn't exactly pan out very good. And of course, I mean, not to throw another studio under the bus, but Warner Brothers has been trying that with I think mixed results would probably be a compliment. But yeah, so if they do it, I think the key to making this work is that if they are going to build a much bigger universe, they can do it, because there's plenty of source material to go off of. So there is that. But if on the other hand, if they just want to keep it confined to only like maybe 3 films, that'll work just as good. Again, but we'll see what happens. I mean, but one thing is for sure, it definitely does set up for a sequel. That much is clear. So I mean, for me personally, I'm just going to wait and see what happens, and I'm just hoping that because of this film, that we get exactly movies like this, but even with an even greater emphasis on story and characters as the years go by. Mm-hmm. Because again, Marvel Studios has been doing that very well, and I know that based on what we now have in terms of source material, there's no reason why Saban can't do that as well.
Alright. That's pretty much all I wanted to know. Alright, so, let's talk a little bit about two other movies that were released this month. So, let's start off with one that we both did see.
Yes.
And that, of course, would be Logan.
Yes.
Alright, so, what did you, Danny the Ultrasonic player, think about Logan, the movie?
Well, for me personally, I felt that it pretty much is exactly what a Wolverine-based movie should be. You know, it's brutal, but yet at the same token, it's very, very heartfelt. Which are two things that you really wouldn't think would go together, but somehow they are able to really, really kind of find that way of balancing the two. And in a way, it's almost kind of like it's reflective of the character Logan, because he's basically that too, because he does have that, you know, berserker rage, but, you know, he, at the same token, the character doesn't like to be like that, you know, but that, in reality, he kind of, you know, I mean, there's that saying, you know, I'm the best there is at what I do, and what I do best isn't very nice, you know, and that sums up the character in a nutshell, because, yeah, I mean, he's vicious, but it's not something he does lightly, and it's not something he likes to do unless he feels he has to. So, I mean, it really reinforces the character very well, because really deep down he is a kind-hearted person and really compassionate. It's just because of all the stuff that's been done to him and having lived as long of a life as he has, you know, it's not exactly easy for him to kind of form, you know, relationships with people, but yet somehow people, the people that he's met over the years, whether it be from the movies or even the comics or especially the animated series, people have found ways to get in and find a way to get through that tough exterior of his and see the kind person that he is. And there's actually one scene, it was from the 90s X-Men cartoon in the series finale. Now I was a huge fan of the X-Men 90s cartoon, but then again, hey, what kid at that time didn't? But there was one scene, and there was something that Charles Xavier had told Logan in the series finale, and I can't remember it word for word. But basically, he says to Logan, Charles Xavier says to Logan, you know, although you are savage, you have found dignity, you know, and that pretty much that also is something that pretty much sums up Logan a great deal, because he really does have a great deal of dignity and honor within him, you know, courtesy of course his the training that he did when he was in Japan. But going back to this film, they're able to find a good balance between having it be brutal, yet at the same token, you know, keep balance it out with a lot of heart. And again, with this film, they don't pull any punches on this one, because they pretty much have Logan do they have him do what he does best. So you have to take that into consideration. So I mean, we knew it was there in previous films, but it was always kind of like, you know, pulled back. But with this one, it's finally, you know, you get to see him just go after the bad guys and whatnot. So I mean, for me, it is a fun film. Of course, again, if you aren't prepared for the amount of bloodshed that's going to be seen, then don't watch it, you know. But still, not because it's awful, but because, you know, it is pretty intense. So
I totally agree with your review. I believe you pretty much said everything I wanted to say. That's why I let you say it. But I totally agree. My only problem with it, and honestly, before I say this, because I know we probably are going to get a lot of flack for this.
We don't mind constructive criticism.
We don't mind. This won't be constructive criticism. This will be nerd raging. So, my problem with it, honestly, and that's just, it's, again, before I say it, it's my personal preference. I really, really believe that a lot of the cursing that they did in the movie, not necessary. Okay? I get it. Movies curse. I get that. Okay? And I've been to a lot of movies, but I literally sat through this movie going, you really did not need to say all of those words, especially every single pretty much line that you said. Every single line in that movie was a curse word. Now, again, this is my personal preference. I know there's probably a lot of people out there that don't completely agree, and I totally okay. You know, I don't hate you if you think that it's fine. I don't think that it's, you know, I'm not going to sit there and argue. It's just my personal preference. I don't think it's necessary. I'm actually okay with the violence level. It's it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, honestly. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. But honestly, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. That was just my biggest thing. The other thing that I didn't like about it was, and again, this is my personal opinion, agree with it if you like, don't agree with it if you don't. I didn't really... It just felt like it took all the X-Men movies that I have watched prior, and I love a lot of the X-Men movies. I think the only one I can honestly say that I didn't like was X-Men 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine. I really didn't like those two, but all the other movies that I had seen previously, I did enjoy. I have to say that this movie kind of felt like they took all those movies that I've been watching and I loved, and they kind of just crumpled it up in a ball and said, it doesn't really matter.
That's true.
Yeah. So I think that was probably my biggest problem with it. If it was a standalone movie that didn't connect to the other X-Men movies, it would have been fine, for me. But because it kind of made me feel like, well, why did I watch all the other movies just to get to this? So I get it that you can't always have a happy ending. I get that. Believe me, I'm a writer. I understand that. But at the same time...
Or you can ask the story group at Lucasfilm.
Right. But in the same token, it just kind of felt like they took a lot of those X-Men movies that I've been watching previously and just like, they don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, to me personally, I mean, I see where you're coming from because I actually have the Days of Future Past, the Rogue cut as it's called. And having seen that, I came away with that film being like, that's it. You don't need to do any more. Because it was a perfect way to kind of end it on a high note, but yet still leave it kind of open to be like, well, what happens now? And with the sense of, well, who knows? All we know is that at least now things are set right to the extent to where now, okay, well, whatever happens now, we'll just, we'll leave it up to the fans to make their own mind.
I have to say the standout character in that movie for me was the girl, Laura, X-23. I really thought that she did an amazing job playing that character. I really did enjoy that character. I kind of liked her kind of progression from this basically just complete wild child to not as wild, just a little bit more subdued.
Yeah,
not completely, but just a little bit more.
Yeah, to say the least.
But I did like her character. I'm hoping, and I'm honestly thinking this is probably what they're doing. Is they're kind of, and again, this is not completely spoiled, but especially if you read the comics, but I think they're gearing it towards doing future X-Men movies, maybe not with a lot of the characters we've seen previously. It's kind of an interesting idea, and I can't wait to see what they do with it, but honestly, it really, really wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. It was definitely a better movie than I thought, but, it just didn't hit all my expectations, and so, but is it a bad movie? Not really.
No,
it is a good movie. Just my expectations were a lot higher, and it just didn't meet those. All right, so that was Logan. So let's move on from Logan to something a little bit more family friendly. Yes. Now this one I have not seen, so I'm just gonna let you talk about it real quick. Danny, Ultrasonic Player, talk to us a little bit about Beauty and the Beast.
Basically, as everyone knows, there is a live-action version of Beauty and the Beast that has just come out and is much like its animated counterpart. It seems to have taken over and just taken everyone by storm in a great way. For me personally, I'll admit, when I first heard about it, when I first heard that they were doing a live-action version of Beauty and the Beast, I really didn't know what to expect. Because for me personally, the 91 animated film left such a huge impact on me. Little backstory. This was actually the first Disney film that I had gone to go see back in 91. I was still living in New York. I had gone, and it was actually, me and my class, we had gone to the General Cinema, which was actually right there in my neck of the woods.
General Cinema?
Yeah, General Cinema. So basically, we had gone to the General Cinema right there at Co-op City. I went to go see it, and I was just blown away. Just everything about it just seemed to just mesh so well, and I didn't even but then again, as a 7-year-old kid, it was an experience that still to this day I still never forgot. I don't forget, and I've never forgotten about it. Just everything about it works so well. So when I heard that they were going to do a live action remake of this, I really didn't know what to think. because I had not because before that I had not seen the live action Jungle Book film, which I do need to do, but it wasn't until I started seeing the trailers, specifically the first teaser trailer and then following trailer after that really made me think, okay, maybe they can actually pull this off. And when I went to go see the film, and of course, just before I went to go see the film, when I heard that they were casting Emma Watson, part of me was kind of a little bit surprised because she wasn't exactly the person that I would think in my head when I would picture a live action version of Belle. But when I went to go see the film, she really, really sold me on this character, which is a tall order because Paige O'Hara did do a good job portraying the character. Now, granted, it may have only been in voiceover form, but still, acting is acting. But Emma Watson made it work. Not only that, but certain other characters as well, like her father Maurice, played by Kevin Kline, which I had to do like not a double take, but like a triple or quadruple take because I did not see the actor in there, and that's the sign of a good performance when you only see the character and you don't see the actor in the scenes. And so just little things like that, and even Ewan McGregor, that's right, Obi-Wan Kenobi as Lumiere. I mean, seems a little strange at first, but again, his performance really worked, and countless other characters as well. And just from start to finish, all the songs, are great. And the cool thing about this film is that not only does it pay homage to the 91 animated movie, but they even take a few cues. One in particular from the original story, or from the older stories that were done before Disney did their version. Namely, the part about Maurice trying to get a rose for Belle, and that's when the Beast comes along and imprisons him. That was not done in the 91 film, but that was from the original story. And the fact that they were able to incorporate that into there was a nice touch. As well as a few other things too, like just so many things, like the Beast getting a chance to sing, which unless you've seen the Broadway show, you're not going to know that there actually was a moment where the Beast actually did sing. That worked, and they even showed an organic reason for why the Beast was a spoiled, selfish, an unkind person when he was the prince. There's a reason for that. Now, I'm not going to say it here because you have to watch the film, but there actually is a very human reason as to why he was like that, and how that ultimately, played a hand in him becoming the Beast in the first place. And how, even interestingly enough, there was someone in his life, it turns out, that had well, again, like I said, without going into too much detail, there is like a bit of a parallel between the Beast and Belle with their respective families, and but again, just watch the movie and you'll see. But besides that, though, the only real criticism that I can lob at the film is the fact that I felt it was a little short in some places, because I really felt they could have taken their time and extended certain moments more, like specifically in two specific action scenes. But other than that, though, it is a great film, and I do highly recommend it. It is definitely a love letter to the 91 film, and again, takes cues from the original, from even the older stories before that. Definitely a must-see.
I'm sorry, unfortunately I have not seen it. Let me just say, I've watched Beauty and the Beast. I really love the animation. I thought all the character designs were wonderful. It's not my favorite film. I know, again, I'm going to get hate mail I'm going to get hate mail a lot for this episode.
Yeah. Spam him!
When I heard about the live action movie, I was just like, I'll probably see it when it comes out on DVD, but for right now, I'm just, meh. So, I think there's a specific reason why I'm meh, and that is, not only just because I'm not a huge fan of the actual movie. I think I'm probably a bigger fan of Aladdin than actually Beauty and the Beast, but that's just me. Now that we've talked a little bit about Beauty and the Beast, let's move on to our next segment, and which is going to be a very, very quick Pokemon Rewind.
Hey, this is Keldeo, the Sword of Justice, and you're listening to Pokemon Rewind.
Alright, so in our segment Pokemon Rewind, we talk a little bit about Pokemon, we talk a little bit about the subject and what we think and how, just news about Pokemon or just anything Pokemon related in general. Unfortunately, we don't really have a whole lot to talk about Pokemon because I think both of us have stopped playing Sun and Moon, and the reason is for a game system which we'll be talking at the end of the podcast about, and specifically for me because of a certain princess that I need to save. Yep. So unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot. Danny, you did want to talk about real quick the new Pokemon movie that's going to be coming out soon, Pokemon I Choose You. So let's talk a little bit about that, and let's talk a little bit about what is this movie about? You've seen the trailer, obviously?
Yes.
Okay, so what is this movie about?
Basically, it basically seems to be it's basically the first episode. Essentially, it's the first episode of the show, but in movie form. From what I've seen on the trailer, it seems like there's because there was one shot that they saw. That I saw, it's basically the scene where Ash is dragging Pikachu because apparently Pikachu just doesn't want to go along with him and just doesn't seem thrilled. But yet it basically takes the first episode and gives it the movie treatment. So while on the one hand it hits almost the same story beats, it does it in a much more fluid way to where it has a more cinematic quality to it than just a straight up carbon copy version of the TV show. And I think there may be moments where to where they also kind of add in some wrinkles, and by that meaning they add in maybe they do the certain scenes in a different way, but it looks like they're actually going back to the roots a little bit with this, and just really kind of I guess also in a way kind of both introducing and reintroducing audiences, both diehards as well as new audiences into this, and to see where did it all start? And that's basically seems to be the gist of it. So yeah, that's the image I got. That's the impression that I got from it, and personally, I'm really looking forward to it.
I agree. I saw the trailer myself. It doesn't really show much. Heck, it doesn't even show Misty and Brock. I haven't even seen them in there yet. So
yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. So it kind of almost makes you wonder, are they even going to be in this film, or is it only going to be Ash and Pikachu centric?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. From what I've seen, they've only showed scenes from the first episode. From what I can tell, it might even be an extended version of just the first episode, which would be perfectly fine if they want to do maybe a trilogy. And maybe do the whole I don't know if this movie's going to cover the entire first season or not, because that's a lot of episodes.
No.
I mean, obviously there's a lot of fluff that they could cut out, but
yeah.
I don't know if they have enough to fill just one movie. I don't know. They haven't showed Misty. They haven't showed Brock. They haven't showed any gym battles or anything like that. Just the only thing they have shown thus far has just been the scenes from the very first episode. And in fact, even the name of the movie comes from the very first episode, which is Pokemon I Choose You.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Here's one thing I do want to happen though, because I know that this is going to be English dubbed. That's a given. It's done, given, complete. All right. We need to bring back the original voice cast. Okay?
Yes.
Not that I don't think that the voice cast that is doing the characters now are bad. I don't. But because this is the 20th anniversary movie, okay, I want them to bring back the original voice cast, specifically Veronica Taylor as Ash. I think it would be awesome to hear them again.
Yeah, and I think even she herself, Veronica Taylor, has also been kind of saying, hey, let's see if we can get me on there.
Right. She haven't heard anything yet, as of yet. But of course, she has to probably be. Even if she did, she has to be pretty quiet about it. So I'm hoping possibly to bring. There is a possibility to bring that back. I know that they've done stuff like this before. One thing I'm hoping to talk about next month, which is Digimon Try. They have the English dub for that, and they actually got as many of the original voice cast from Digimon as they could, including Tai, which is already confirmed because I saw the trailer for it. So that's confirmed. So it can be done. And they have done it previously before. But will they do it for this one? I don't know. I'm hoping, possibly, maybe, kinda, please. So.
Well, hey, stranger things have happened. So, I mean, so everybody, just, take to the streets of Twitter and Facebook and just start making a racket, people.
Riot. Digitally riot. With digital pitchforks and digital torches and digital rocks throwing through digital windows. Sure. Okay, we'll go.
Yeah. Or better yet, just for anybody who has a legendary Pokemon, and I mean I'm talking like the really big, intimidating ones, or even just a Gyarados or a Charizard, bring them out and just just go buck wild, essentially, because I think that might be that's going to be probably what it takes to get them to hopefully get the original cast on there. And come to think of it, because how sometimes some movies, I mean not all of them do this, especially nowadays, but there are certain movies where they kind of pull back to where they don't show their hand until like the very, very last moment. Or rather, if they do like what if they do another Pokemon I Choose You trailer, and this time you actually see Misty or Brock?
Right.
Because after all, Marvel Studios did that with Captain America Civil War,
right,
because we knew that Spidey was going to be in there.
Right.
We did not know exactly when or how or if we were going to see him in the trailers. But then, when they did the third trailer, again, those last few seconds were the most pivotal, epic seconds of every geek's life.
Right. No, I agree.
So they could do something like that with Misty and Brock if they decide to go that route. But of course, who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I can't wait to see what they do with this.
Yeah.
So, alright, I'm gonna go very quickly. Our next subject for Pokemon this month is just very quick review of the newest Pokemon movies, speaking about Pokemon movies, which is Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel, which is probably one of the, not the first, but one of the very few Pokemon movies that actually has two legendaries in it, as opposed to just the one. Usually it's just a one single legendary.
Well, to be fair,
usually.
Okay. Because I was gonna give a rebuttal and say, in Pokemon the movie 2000.
Well, yeah. Usually there's only one, but they're very few and far between, because usually it's just one single legendary. With this movie, there are two main legendaries in this one. The first being Volcanion, which is the first water-fire type Pokemon. And then we have Magearna, who is the fairy steel type. Who looks like just like a robot bunny. And I will have to say, I don't know if it's just because in Japan these are becoming cash grabs or whatever, but these movies have been coming out every summer since Pokemon first started. And every summer we get a new Pokemon movie, and I really think that with a few exceptions, these have been just pretty much, we just want money, we're gonna make a Pokemon movie. These are just quick cash grabs, basically. That's basically it. So, with Magearna, with Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel, this was definitely better than the Hoopa movie. Now, I did a review on Hoopa a while back, and I said that I did enjoy it, but to a point, and I stand by that. It wasn't that great a movie. It was basically a kaiju movie because it had giant legendaries fighting each other. This movie was a little bit better. It had more story, it had more heart than the other one. It wasn't just, let's just throw a whole bunch of legendaries and see them fight each other. What? This was actually like, it actually had a heart to it, had a soul to it, if you will, but it still wasn't enough to grab my attention. And very few of the Pokemon movies have. I can tell you a few of them that I do like. Of course, the first one. Of course, Pokemon the movie 2000. Lucario and the Mystery of Mew is my favorite. Number one, favorite one. And if you've followed me on the site, thearcadearchives.com, you probably know that already. Lucario and the Mystery Mew is probably the best Pokemon movie, hands down, out of all of them that they've made thus far. Which is also great because it was the last time Veronica Taylor ever voiced Ash. So it was kind of a great send-off to that group. For this movie, it was just pretty much the same. It was just kind of like, alright. Oh, I almost forgot the Diamond and Pearl trilogies. Trilogy was really cool because that was the first time they actually did a trilogy of movies. Now, the movies themselves can kind of stand alone. So like I said, these movies are really good, and so I highly suggest the Diamond and Pearl movies. They are really good, and they are even better if you watch them all together. But other than those movies, like, all the rest of the Pokemon movies have just been meh, you know? So, they're just kind of like, you know, they're there.
I mean,
they exist.
Yeah, well, I think what they should do is kind of like hold back and maybe kind of like give themselves like maybe do it every other year as opposed to every year. Because it's not like, say, with, because unless they have a big story group that handle, I don't know, maybe it's, because unless they got a way to do it, because we know, you know, Disney, Lucasfilm has already figured out a way to do that, but then again, they have a story team already in place to handle the next set of Star Wars movies. I don't know if, the Pokemon Company has, something like that can kind of help craft, you know, more epic films. Or at least do more fun, exciting popcorn movies, essentially. Because again, Pokemon has all the makings of a good popcorn movie. You just have to know exactly how to do it.
And I agree with that, and I think that's probably another reason why they're doing Pokemon I Choose You, is they're not doing they're not showcasing a legendary this time.
Yeah.
They're going back to the originals.
Only in passing.
Right. They're going back to the originals and maybe just retelling the story for those of kids who probably are too young to remember, and for those of us who are old enough and probably don't even remember the first episode, honestly.
Yeah.
So I think that this is probably a new beginning for that, and I can't wait to see what they do with it. So, alright, so that's pretty much all we have for Pokemon Rewind this month. So now it's time to switch it up. Oh!
I'm so glad I coined that term.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was a horrible transition. Anyways, so we're gonna start our main menu. We're gonna open the main menu here, and we're gonna talk about our review of the Nintendo Switch. So let's first talk about how we got our Switches. Cause I have a story. You kinda have a story.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about it, because I know there's a lot of people out there who haven't got their Switch yet.
Yeah.
How did you get yours?
Yes.
How did you get yours? Cause my story's a little long. So how did you get yours?
Okay, so for me, I first heard about it, when I was going into a GameStop, and actually, well, no, before that. It all started when I heard about this commercial for a new Nintendo system from a coworker of mine at Frozen, at the Frozen Sing-Along show at Universal Studios. He told me about it, and I quickly heard about this. I'm like, okay, don't tell me, because I haven't seen anything yet. And then when I saw the commercial, I was just blown away. Like, and again, just genuinely blown away, and I quickly went to my GameStop as soon as I could and asked them as to when they would be taking pre-orders. And he told me, well, it's not right now, but when it does, just, if anything, just give me a contact number and I'll let you know, because that's what we're doing now. And so I gave him my contact number, and then and fortunately though, it's a good thing that he told me this on the day, because he contacted me on my day off, which is good, because at least that way I was able to, go to my local GameStop, right on that day of, and just basically pre-ordered the Switch. And I basically decided to go ahead and just, pay the whole thing right then and there on the spot. I had money for it, so it wasn't that big a deal. So as soon as I did that, I knew, okay, so at least I have it paid, and I'll be good on that. And I even went ahead and put a little money down towards a few of the launch titles. 3 of which were The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, 1-2 Switch, and Super Bomberman R. And that was it. And then of course just, as the weeks would go by, I would put a little bit of money towards them. So that way, and I just kept doing that until finally the day of launch, everything was pretty much paid off and ready for me to pick up.
And did you have any trouble picking it up, or was there a line for it, or what? What was the deal when you got there that day?
Surprisingly enough, there really wasn't that big of a line, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people who got their Switches, by shedding blood, I know that's probably not. I know my story probably sounds more like, yeah, you just got lucky. Well, it was more like just good timing, I guess. But again, I do tip my hat though to everybody who did have to struggle to get theirs, because I know that I was fortunate enough to pre-order mine and be able to get it, because I know that for mostly everyone else, it was a different animal altogether.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got a story to tell you, mister.
All right, take it away then.
All right. So for me, I did not actually pre-order the Switch because I was working and could not get to a GameStop and was not able to pre-order the Switch, not because I didn't want it, but because I wasn't able to get to a store in time to get one. So what I did do was I pre-ordered Breath of the Wild, because I know that game, I was gonna get it. It was gonna happen. I was gonna, and I was bent on getting the system, right? Well, I tried to pre-order as much as I could. Every time I went into a GameStop, I tried to pre-order it, and nothing. No pre-orders. Nothing. And I even was on the list to get emailed by GameStop saying, we'll let you know when we have one available, and nothing. So probably about a week after the Switch system came out, I was bent on getting a system. This is it. I'm getting one. So I went through my library of video games, and I found a whole bunch of games and systems and a whole bunch of stuff that I just didn't want anymore. And so I traded it all in. And they had a promotion that if you got like an accessory for the Switch, you got 50% more trading credit towards it. So with everything that I traded in, I got over over $500 worth of trade-in credit. And so they told me that they didn't have any systems, but if I wanted to, I could pre-order a bundle set that they were selling. And they had two bundle sets. One was like $550, and I think the other one was just $500. I got the $500 one, obviously. Yeah. I believe the $550 one came with, you got the system, you got Breath of the Wild, you got, the DLC pass for Breath of the Wild, you got Bomberman, I think you got another game with it, you got a second set of, Switch controllers, you got a case, and I think you got a memory card. For the package that I got the system, I got an extra set of Joy-Con controllers, I got Breath of the Wild, I got, the DLC pass, and I got Bomberman. Now, they told me when I decided to do this that I probably would not get my system till April, which I was a little bit sad about. But I was like, okay, well, at least I'm getting it. So I walked out of GameStop and I kind of had buyer's remorse for a little bit. It was just like, should I have done that? Cause I walked out, I just sold $500 worth of stuff and got a piece of paper saying, well, you could get a system. So I didn't know, I didn't really know if I had just been sold snake water or whatever.
Oh man.
That weekend, I got an email. I bought the thing on Saturday. That Sunday night, I got an email saying, here's your Breath of the Wild DLC pass code. And I stood there and went, that's great, but I can't use it. I don't have my system yet. So I can't use this. This is kind of, I'm glad that they're on it, but like, I can't really use it now, man. Then the next day, I was sitting and talking with Reagan, the founder of the Arcade Archive Network, and we were having lunch together and, talking about the site and the future of it and all that other things that we talk about. Anyways, and then I got a ping on my phone, said I got an email. It was from GameStop, and it said something to the effect of, we are sorry that this is taking a little too long. Here's $20. We will send you your shipment. We'll let you know when your shipment gets sent out as soon as possible. And I was like, delay? I'm not supposed to get it till April. What's going on here? So that night, when I got home, I got another email saying, your order has been shipped. Your system will be with you. I was like, what? And so within a week, probably not even that. Probably about 5 days. Probably a work week. Within 5 days, I had my game system in my hands. And it was so cool. I was so happy that I got it. So, I went through a lot of different things to get this system, and I was not disappointed.
A total epic quest in and of itself.
Oh yes. Well, at least I had another friend of mine who actually got his system, and then he got one of those ones that was actually bad. So he has to wait a little bit longer for his system, but let's just say it was pretty good that I got, the one I got.
Yeah.
But I was really excited when I first saw the trailer. I remember I was at work, I was just about to begin, and Raygun came down right before I was starting work, and he's like, "You've got to see this, you've got to see this, you've got to see this." I was like, "What?" And he's like, "This is the trailer for the Switch." And I was like, okay. And so I watched the trailer, and right there and then, I was like, I want this system. I must have this system. It was everything I always wanted a game system to be. It's a portable system and a home console all in one system. It's so awesome, the technology that they're using to just use this system. The only thing I could probably gripe about this system is I'm actually really weary about bringing this around with me. It's not like my Game Boy not a Game Boy, my 3DS. It's not my 3DS where I'm just kind of like, well, I can just put it in my pocket or whatnot. This system, you can't really do that with.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you mention that because one of my coworkers actually has brought his Switch with the Legend of Zelda, and it's funny because one of my managers at Frozen is actually a huge Nintendo fan, specifically a Nintendo 64 fan. That's right. And cue the scream, Nintendo 64!
Oh boy.
Sorry. I couldn't resist. I had to do it. But as soon as she played, it was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And even though, granted, she kept dying as she was playing it, but she was just blown away by it. And that tells you everything you need to know.
And it's a great system. I'm just so afraid that I'm going to lose this, because if I lose that system, I lose the system.
Pretty much. So it's one of those things. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things where you just have to kind of like make sure that it goes where you go.
Right.
And then you kind of have to. I mean, granted, when you're with your friends, you can breathe more easily.
Right.
Because you know they'll be fine with it, but it's kind of reminds me of those times when I had my GBA or my Game Boy Advance, and I would lend it to my and this was in my senior year in high school, and I had Super Mario Super Mario Advance 3, aka Super Mario World, on the GBA, and they would be playing it. And it's funny, even people that I wouldn't expect to be playing that game ended up playing that game.
Right.
And I had to kind of be a little bit weary because, again, it's like, that's my gadget, that's my baby.
Right.
But,
with the Game Boy, it's not so, with Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and Game Boy SP and
now the
3DS and stuff like that, you're all worried about it. It's not like you're just like, but like, if you were really worried about it, you could just put it in your pocket, and then, it could go with you. Yeah. But with this system, you can't really put it in your pocket.
No.
But you probably wouldn't want to.
No, but fortunately, though, it fits into a satchel pretty easily, especially if you get the certain carrying cases.
Right. And you can get a lot of different carrying cases for it and whatnot. It's more like, it feels more like a laptop as opposed to like a 3DS or something like that.
I liken it more to that of just Nintendo's version of the iPad.
Yeah.
Video games.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair. So, let's talk a little bit about the system. Now, just the system itself, not the games, because we're going to talk about the games here in a second.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the system itself. Do you like the control scheme? Do you feel, how do you usually play your Switch? Do you usually put it in the controller slots? Do you just play it handheld? Do you plug it up to your TV? How do you play your Switch?
The thing is, for me, it's kind of an interesting thing because I have not been able to hook it up to the TV set because and again, this goes back to my whole little because of my little bed bug problem that I had with my room. That really put a damper on things, and so as such, the only way that I've been able to play the Switch is with the Joy-Con controllers attached to the side of the system. However, though, that being said, though, I have had the chance to take it out, put it on kickstand mode, and just play it that, just get a feel for it. Honestly, I love the control scheme setups that they have for them.
Okay.
There isn't a one specific control scheme that puts me off, which is good, because this means that you can kind of play it in any type of way you want to, and it definitely gives me something to look forward to once I have my own TV set up and everything else. So yeah, so again, and of course everybody who has a Switch, that there's multiple ways over how to play the game, or how to play these games. Of course, granted, certain games dictate setting up a different control scheme, but that's the beauty of it. Probably one of the best selling points of the Switch is its flexibility. And this actually is something that harkens back to the Nintendo Wii. Where a lot of the guys like Reggie Fils-Aimé and Shigeru Miyamoto and all of the Nintendo alumni were basically talking about how they were looking for a different way to play games. And it goes back to that, and this is the next natural extension of that, because now you can play it, the classic way, because there is a little, I guess you could call it like a shell, where you can pretty much attach the Joy-Con controllers on. Yeah. You can basically hold it free hands, or by that meaning you can just hold it in both your hands and just play it that way, or you can play it, as I like to call it, iPad style, where you just basically attach them onto the sides of the system, and there you go. Or thanks to the little kickstand, you can just play it that way. So again, its flexibility is what really sells the system. And already the games that have come out so far really show there isn't any which way. There isn't no wrong way to play, with the exception of maybe one game title, but only because the games in it dictate for you to actually have the control scheme in a certain way. But even that, it's a great system, and I'm really looking forward to what's coming next.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's definitely a much more flexible game system than most. I'm glad that I got 2 sets of Joy-Cons, because the thing I love about the system is that it doesn't have like one of those cords that you recharge your controllers to. All you have to do is just attach the controllers to the system and they recharge already. It's really good for me, especially with those long hours, long hours playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I can, if one pair of Joy-Cons dies, then I can just switch them out with the ones that are already attached to the system, which have been charging. It's kind of nice to have that, so where I can do that. I eventually do want to get a Pro Controller. Those are very expensive.
Yes, they are.
I think the reason why the controllers are so expensive is because really you don't really need much more than just maybe one set of Joy-Cons, maybe 2. After that, you don't really need anything else, because technically with the sets that I have, I can play 4 players.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I don't really need too many more controllers. So, I do like the system. I do think it's a great system. I think that Breath of the Wild, which we'll talk extensively here in a little bit.
You especially.
Me especially. Is probably the best launch title for this system because of the length of this gameplay. But they do have, Bomberman and 1, 2, 3 Switch and all these games that do come, you can get it, and it shows off what the Switch can do, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about the games now, okay? So we have, between the two of us, we've only played 3 games for the Switch. We've played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, we've played Bomberman R, and we've played 1, 2, 3 Switch. We're gonna leave Breath of the Wild for last.
yeah, because that's gonna be your segment. Sadly, I haven't gotten to it yet, but not by choice. But I am working on that.
Let's talk Bomberman first.
Yes.
I want to be completely honest. Okay? Completely, 100% honest. And again, I think I'm gonna get a lot of hate mail for this podcast. But I've never really been a big fan of Bomberman. The only reason I got the game was because it came with the bundle. And the only game I really, really wanted was Breath of the Wild. That was it. Mm-hmm. But I got Bomberman, I decided to keep it. I played multiplayer with it. I played it a little bit myself. And honestly, I beat the first level and was like, well, I'm done. That's it. So, it is a fun game. It's just not my kind of style, Yeah. So what do you think about Bomberman?
Well, For myself personally, I love it, and the reason why is because it harkens back to the original Bomberman games that came out way back in the day, specifically for a little kind of, I guess you could say, kind of obscure, but I would think both obscure and underrated system called the TurboGrafx 16, of which a cousin of mine once had. So he introduced me to that system. But basically, since I had downloaded it via Virtual Console onto my original Nintendo Wii, which I still have, it was Bomberman 93, because I never had a TurboGrafx 16, so that was great, because I was able to download that. But playing it really was it just sucked me in. I mean, it was just a mixture of the graphic style mixed in with the gameplay, and just trying to blast away at walls and blast away at enemies and trying not to get caught in the pathway of those bombs when they go off. It was just so much fun. And what I like about Super Bomberman R is that, one, it harkens back to those original games. Chief among them being also the recent one that I also just downloaded for my Wii U called Bomberman 94, which, again, I still have yet to play, but having played Bomberman 93, I kind of already have a feeling what to expect with this other one that I downloaded. But going back to Bomberman R, it basically harkens back to each of those classic Bomberman games, and it doesn't really like add anything new to it, but it just kind of just takes what we know and just kind of enhances it in terms of just how it looks. But it still stays true to the gameplay, because and I'm glad for that, because I still remember that one attempt that they had done, and I'm not sure which system they did it on. It wasn't on a Nintendo system, thank God for that. It might have been either for the Xbox or PlayStation, where they tried to do this really really hyper-realistic version of Bomberman. And granted, I never owned that title, but just looking at that, I'm like, dude, no, absolutely not. You kind of know what I'm talking about, right?
I'm not really sure about that title. Like I said, I've never really been a big Bomberman fan, so I don't follow the series, sorry. Yeah,
it's okay. But basically, to make a long story short, there was one attempt at trying to do like a hyper-realistic version of Bomberman, and fortunately though, that thing, came and went very quickly, which was a good thing, because that game just did not really harken to what Bomberman really is, because the nature of the games and the franchise itself is that it has this very cartoony graphic style that fits with the character and the gameplay itself. And playing this game, it harkens back to that, and it doesn't take away from it. And the cool thing about it is, and maybe this is because of my schedule, of my work schedule and the way it is that it's a game you can play in short spurts. So you can kind of play maybe a level or two, or maybe just play one, and then that'll be that, which is great. So in all, basically, if you're looking for a game that you just want to play very quickly, short spurts, nothing too long, nothing too strenuous, Super Bomberman R is really a game for you. Plus, if you actually have a friend or two, specifically a friend or two that actually has a Switch, then you can kind of battle it out and have more of a versus mode, which I think there is where the game really shines. I've only played single player because, again, I'm the only one in my family who actually has a Switch.
2 players on the same Switch.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Well, there you go. I stand corrected. But yeah, it really lends itself more to a multiplayer experience, which again is also another great selling point of the Switch. So, again, whether it be for yourself, you can play it short spurts. But I believe, again, this is a game where you have to really go multiplayer to really unlock its full potential. And by that meaning, really be able to get into the game. Cause this is one game, it's one of those games to where playing it by yourself is okay, but you really need to go multiplayer if you really want the full experience.
Okay, so let's talk about 1, 2, 3 Switch.
Yes.
I think this is really going to be a quick review because we both played it, we both liked it.
Yep.
It's a party game.
Yeah, essentially.
Essentially, it's a party game.
Wii Sports.
Yeah, it's a party game that shows off what the Switch can do, and you don't need to even look at the TV screen. Like you can just have it set up. You got the little kickstand out there, and it's a party game. It was a lot of fun. We played it with my mom, who doesn't really play video games.
No.
And we had a great time.
And she actually beat you a few times.
She did. And we had a lot of fun with it. And so if you're looking for a good multiplayer party game that you don't even really need a whole bunch of controllers for, I highly suggest 1, 2, 3 Switch. But if you're a hardcore gamer, or at least a softcore gamer, like myself, I consider myself to be a softcore gamer. I highly suggest, if you have friends, if you have a lot of friends come over all the time, get 1, 2, 3 Switch. If you're usually just play by yourself, probably not the game for you.
And not because it's an awful game, but because it's a game that demands you to actually...
It demands multiplayer. So yes. So if you don't have a whole lot of people, it's just not really worth the price. But if you have a lot of people coming over all the time, you're a social butterfly, then this is definitely the game for you. Now we get into the meat, potatoes, and this is what I've been wanting.
The whole thing.
The heart of the Triforce.
Yes, take it away, Nerd. Take it away.
So, The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
There's one. Oh, and another. The flowers we have in Hyrule aren't just beautiful. They're also quite useful as ingredients for a variety of things. This one here is called the Silent Princess. It's a rare, endangered species. Despite our efforts, we can't get them to grow domestically yet. The princess can only thrive out here, in the wild. All that we can hope is that the species will be strong enough to prosper on its own. Is that what I think it is? Look at this. I don't believe it, but I actually caught one. This delicacy is known to have very, very potent effects under the proper circumstances. Ta-da! Research from the castle shows ingesting one of these can actually augment certain abilities. We wouldn't be in a controlled environment out here, but with your level of physical fitness, you'd be a perfect candidate for the study. Go on. Taste it.
Like I said previously, this is the best launch title game that Nintendo has ever made, because this game will take you months to beat. Months to beat. This is open world done right. I absolutely, positively love this game. There's just so much to do. You can't even really do it all, honestly. Like, you have to, even if after you beat the game, you have to go back and, like, find things. There are just so many collectibles. The world itself, Hyrule, is so vast and so big that it honestly could take you probably 5 hours to walk from one side of Hyrule to the other. Just walking. And that's not teleporting, that's actual walking. Okay, it is a vast, vast kingdom, and it has a lot of secrets and a lot of nooks and a lot of crannies. This is definitely the best if you have ADD, this is a game for you. Because, you will definitely be like, oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? And then it'll be like halfway across the continent, which I have done.
Wow.
So let's talk about it. The Breath of the Wild starts off as you as Link, obviously. You are hearing Zelda's voice, which is actually quite weird because this is the first Zelda game with voice acting. It actually has voice acting. Now, not everything is voice acted. Most of the cutscenes are voice acted, and there's little bits and pieces of voice acting throughout. But for the most part, it's just your typical Zelda game. Most people talk in grunts and whatnot. Stuff like that. But there are voice acting. And so you wake up to Zelda's voice. She is calling you. And, you wake up in this, like, back-to-tank. You wake up and, right there next to you is this little pedestal with, like, it looks like a Switch. But it's called the Sheikah Slate. And, it's basically a Switch. Kind of like a little iPad. Yeah, it's like a little iPad. You can take pictures with it. It's kind of an interesting little thing. But, this brings you to the game, and then once you get out of where you're at, you get some clothes on, you climb up a little bit, because you can climb in this game, and you can actually jump in this game. And I'm not just talking you just walk over to a ledge and then you just jump. No, there is a jump button that you can press, and you can jump. And you climb up, you get out of this cave, and all of a sudden, it reminds me of how the theme parks are built. Specifically Walt Disney World. If you've ever been to Magic Kingdom, even Disneyland, same thing. You don't really see the park until you walk past the train station. And then once you've walked past this train station in this tunnel, you walk out and then you're kind of hit with everything. That's what Breath of the Wild does at the beginning of the game. Is it kind of gives you this, you're in this cave, you're getting out of this back to tank, essentially. You don't remember much. You just hear this voice and you're just kind of following what she says. And then you get out of the cave, and once you're out of the cave, you step out and there's this gorgeous view of most of all of Hyrule. And you just kind of look at it and go, whoa. Wow. And that doesn't even give you half of what, you see mountains in the background. You could go to those mountains. You can go and you can climb to the top of those mountains, and you can do all kinds of things. You're not given a specific horse. You can actually find wild horses, jump on them, and then tame them, and then they can become your horse. You have a stable, you can have up to 5 horses in there, and each horse has different strengths and weaknesses, and some horses are a little more wild than others, and some are easily tamed, and, it all depends. There's just, and that's just one thing. And then there's wildlife, and you can capture wildlife, and you can take pictures of wildlife, and you can grab items off the ground, and it's just a fully immersive experience, wrapped in a wonderful story as well. This whole story about you've been out for 100 years, evil has taken the land, and you're tasked with getting it back. I won't give up too much because there's a reason why you don't see Zelda, but there's a specific reason. However, as you play through the game, you start to find your memories. You start to gain your memories back, and there's a specific way, but again, I'm not going to spoil it. But I have collected all said memories, and I really, really thought that was awesome because most of the memories that you find are of your time with Zelda, and you kind of see who Zelda is through this. I mean, a lot of times in a lot of the Legend of Zelda games, you meet Zelda once, she gets kidnapped, and then you have to save her, right? And a lot of times you don't really get the motivations. I remember with Ocarina of Time, it was a little bit better because you kind of got a little bit of background for Zelda, and even Twilight Princess, you got a little bit more, but it wasn't complete. You didn't understand, Zelda's kind of personality completely. And for this though, you really get to see who Zelda is, and if you don't mind me spoiling it a little bit, in my opinion, she's the Hermione Granger of Zelda. This version of Zelda is the Hermione Granger, if you will.
If you want to send hate mail.
No, that's not hate mail. I'm not dissing her. That's basically, if I can describe her character. If I can describe her character, she is basically the Hermione Granger. She is very intellectual. She's very smart.
So she's not just a pretty face.
No, she's not just a pretty face. She is almost like have a scientific mind. That's really, really interesting for Zelda this time around. And through these memories, you actually get to learn more about Zelda and about her kind of struggle and how she got to where she is now and why you're trying to save her. You also meet some other characters along the way, and these characters you find out more about. I will have to admit, so far, as I've played, I really wish I could have learned a little bit more about them, because you kind of learn a little bit about them, and that's pretty much it. But I was very happy with, and here's the other thing that I love. I also love it. It's a love-hate relationship with this game. It throws you into this world, and you really have to figure out everything on your own. Like, everything. Fighting, cooking, getting horses. They give you a very, very vague description of what you're supposed to do, and then you're just kind of tasked with, doing it. Like, for instance, cooking. You can cook in the game. You can get items, you can throw them into a pot, you can cook. I did not know how to cook for half the game.
Oh,
No,
boy.
probably about 25% about a quarter through the game. I didn't know how to cook. And cooking is actually very, very important to this game. You will not survive long if you don't know how to cook. I actually found out by accident, how to cook. Now,
Wow.
I do like that. Now, sometimes it gets annoying because, especially there's not very many dungeons in this game, by the way.
Wow.
There's not very many. There's a few. And, the few that you do have, they don't really tell you how to beat the boss. You just kind of have to figure it all out on your own. Usually when you go into a dungeon, you get a specific weapon, and that weapon is supposed to be used to beat up the bad guy. This time that doesn't happen. You have to figure it all out on your own. You have to figure out how these bosses work and what weapons work better on which bad guy. And you really have to figure out it all on your own.
In other words, if you have the strategy guide, keep it sealed up until after you beat the game then?
Yeah, pretty much. Now, some of it is actually kind of cool because I can kind of discover it on my own. I can kind of discover how to catch a horse, and I can discover that some animals are rideable and some animals are not. And this is a good thing. I like it. But there are some things that I wish that they would kind of tell you a little bit more about. But they literally just kind of throw you in this world and say, okay, have fun. That's another thing I like about this game is you really don't have a time frame or a set things that you have to do at specific times unless you do a specific side quest or something like that. You really are just kind of free to do whatever you want, however you want it. You can beat the game in whatever order you want. You can go anywhere you want to go. If you don't want to go to any dungeon, you don't have to go to dungeons. You can just run around and do kinds of whatever you want. You can collect anything you want to. You can take pictures of whatever you want to. You can kind of find whatever weapons that you want to use. You can actually use more than one weapon. This is one of the first Zelda games I could actually use spears and daggers and boomerangs and,
Wow.
It's different. The only thing I don't like about the system, the weapon system, is that these weapons break very easily. You only probably get maybe about 10 or 15 uses out of them, and then they're gone, and then you have to get new ones. So you have to stock up.
Oh boy.
So I think that's probably the few only things I can gripe or complain about.
But that's kind of not a bad thing because then at that point it forces you to be more strategic.
Right. It does. And then, they may not be a lot of boss battles of giant bosses. However, there is bigger enemies that you have to face, and some of them are secretive, and sometimes you don't know when they're going to pop up, and sometimes,
oh boy.
Yes. I remember the first time I had to fight this one thing. I didn't even know it was a thing until it started just kind of forming, and I was like, oh.
And at that point, you're kind of wondering, okay, don't panic. Okay, start panicking.
No, you start panicking. But yeah, it's such an immersive game that I really do highly suggest it for your Zelda fans out there. Now, I will say, if you have the Zelda amiibos for any of the Legend of Zelda amiibos, then you're in luck because this game is actually compatible with all the Zelda amiibos. But not just the Zelda amiibos, you are actually able to use all your amiibos. Every single amiibo works with this game. Now, how you scan it, you have to get into a specific area in the game to get it. But once you do get it, you'll be able to scan it. Now, for those of you who have a Switch, if you have the Switch, it's the left side Joy-Con. It's the receiver is actually in the stick. So you just put the amiibo right on the stick, and it scans it right in there. Now, for those of you, I'll teach you a few secrets out there for those of you Zelda fans. And again, I won't be spoiling anything. This is stuff you can actually find, and they've actually said before on previous videos and whatnot. If you have the Wolf Link amiibo that you could either buy with the Twilight Princess HD version, or they sell it separately now. If you have the Wolf Link amiibo, you can scan the Wolf Link amiibo, and Wolf Link will actually appear in the game and actually become a canine companion. And he will fight with you, he will help you find items. He doesn't stay a whole bunch, he doesn't stay a very long time, but he does stay for a while. and can help you out. Now the other Zelda amiibos, now when I say Zelda amiibos, I mean any of the Legend of Zelda amiibos. That includes the Smash Brothers versions, the 30th anniversary amiibos, and also the Breath of the Wild amiibos specifically. Now, all the Legend of Zelda amiibos, if you scan them, they will give you specific items and things that you can't get in the game. Like, for example, if you scan Toon Link or the Wind Waker Link 30th anniversary figure, you can get Link's bow, his hat, and even his shield from the game. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, the Breath of the Wild figures will unlock all kinds of different weapons. Now, what do the other amiibos do? The non-Zelda amiibos. The non-Zelda amiibos actually give you food. So food items. So a lot of times if you're low on food or you need a specific food item to make a specific dish in the game, you can actually use any amiibo that you have, and then food will just rain from the sky. And then you can pick it up, and then you can start cooking or use it in any. So if you're looking for food, if you have a huge amiibo collection like I do, that does come in handy. Now, I have pretty much all the Breath of the Wild amiibos. The only one I'm missing is Princess Zelda, which I'm actually, hopefully, will be getting here very, very soon. Once I get Princess Zelda, I'll have all the Breath of the Wild amiibos. But you can use them in the game, and they do work. I know that the Ocarina of Time Link and the Smash Brothers Link figures actually unlock Epona in the game, so you can actually ride Epona, and he'll already be tamed. He actually has the fastest speed and everything, so he's all ready to go for you once you scan him into the game. So all you have to do is just register him in your stable and you have him. So yeah, it's really, really cool. So I highly suggest Breath of the Wild. I highly suggest it for anyone who has a Switch. If you don't have a Switch and you don't think you can afford it right now, you can't find one, don't worry. Breath of the Wild is actually on the Wii U as well, so you can play it on the Wii U, and I haven't really heard much about the Wii U version, other than the graphics are a little bit less.
Surprisingly enough,
crisper.
Yeah. What I can actually tell you is that it turns out some Wii systems have actually been moved because of Breath of the Wild.
Right.
So that's a nice little touch.
Right. So. But yeah, if you want to get a good Zelda game, I highly, highly suggest Breath of the Wild. As of right now, I have not actually beaten the game. I am still playing through a lot of stuff, but like I said, it's gonna take months to finally beat this game completely, but I'm perfectly okay with it. I really do love it, and that's why poor Bomberman doesn't get much love either. So... but it's because I've just been playing. I've been playing it anytime I can get a free time. I play Breath of the Wild, and honestly, I don't even really want to travel with it because, like, literally, I'll be sitting there for hours playing.
Yeah. I mean, Zelda is one game that you cannot necessarily. Granted, you could take it with you on the road. Especially if you're, traveling in a plane. But,
maybe if you're traveling on a plane or a train or something like that, that's fine. But
just make sure it's charged.
Right. But if you're going to work and you're bringing your system, probably not a good idea.
Not that one specifically. But fortunately, though, that's where games like Bomberman can come in because, again, that's a game that you can play very quick. One level, there you go.
All right. So let's wind down our Switch review with what we're looking forward to coming on the Switch.
Yeah.
I'll start. So first, I'm really excited about at the end of April getting Mario Kart 8. Mm-hmm. I've already got mine pre-ordered. I'm glad that all the DLC and all that is attached, which is great. I can't wait to play and see how it looks on the Switch.
Yeah.
I loved it on the Wii U, and I can't wait to see what it looks like on the Switch. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mario Kart 8 was a hugely great game. Very good, very well done game, and I was very happy with it. And I can't wait to see what the control scheme is going to be like for this system.
I think it's going to be insane.
Yeah, I mean, is that what you're looking forward to?
Oh my gosh, so many games coming out, and there's even one in particular that I still have to pre-order. But yes, like you, I actually have the Mario Kart 8 already pre-ordered, and not just that one. But I also have Splatoon 2 pre-ordered as well.
Oh yeah. I'm super excited for Splatoon. I loved Splatoon on the Wii U. I thought it was such a great game. And I cannot wait for Splatoon 2. And now that I can actually take my system with me and I don't have to be at home because I don't have internet at home, I can actually play Splatoon 2 anywhere. So that'll be a great, a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see, because I have all the Splatoon amiibos, so I can't wait to see what they unlock in, Splatoon 2.
Yeah, I really need to go on a amiibo shopping spree. Granted, I have a few. I've got Smash Brothers Mario, I got, Fox and Falco, and I got, Yarn Yoshi, Green Yarn Yoshi. And I still have to get Poochie.
Poochie.
And, let's see who else. I've got the Retro 3-pack, which includes, the Duck Hunt Dog, Mr. Game & Watch.
Right, we did an unboxing for that.
And Rob.
Uh-huh.
And that's about it as far as I know. The fact that you have all the Zelda amiibos makes me really jealous, man. And how did you manage to get two versions of Archer Link?
They're not, the second one is not mine, actually.
Oh, okay.
But we'll, yeah. So, but yeah, I love collecting these amiibos, and sometimes it helps to have connections.
Yeah, big time.
So,
man.
I think some other games I'm looking forward to is,
sorry,
no, that's fine.
Splatoon 2 and
Splatoon 2.
And Sonic Mania.
Sonic Mania, definitely.
And even a certain other puzzle game called Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is essentially, of course, the Puyo Puyo figurines that you'll see on the screen. It's basically the beans from Dr. Robotnik's Bean Bean machine, essentially.
Right. Well, that's what Puyo Pa was made by. It was made by the same people. So yeah.
So that explains it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I also have to say that I'm looking forward to Super Mario Odyssey. That's going to be amazing.
That's like you're putting Mario in a whole new place, which is really great. Yet still familiar all the time, which is great.
I'm excited for that. I'm also excited for Fire Emblem Warriors, which is coming out later on this year. Now, I'm a huge fan of Hyrule Warriors. I loved Hyrule Warriors, and I think the main part of it was Zelda. It was The Legend of Zelda. I'm a huge Zelda fan. I think that was probably the main part, but I think that Fire Emblem is actually going to fit. Is going to fit the Hyrule, the Warriors franchise a little bit better than Zelda, because I really think that, there's a lot of class characters, there's a lot of Fire Emblem characters that you can play. It's really a vast universe, and just like with Zelda, there's a lot of different universes that they can play with, and characters that they can use, and so I can't wait to see what they do with Fire Emblem. Mm-hmm. I know this is kind of like the Fire Emblem year for Nintendo, because
big time.
You've got the Fire Emblem Heroes app, and you've got Fire Emblem Heroes, which is coming out. Fire Emblem Warriors, which is coming out later on this year or sometime this year. You've got another Fire Emblem game that they're bringing to the States for the first time, Fire Emblem Echoes. You have just a whole bunch of Fire Emblem stuff, and I'm very glad for Fire Emblem, because that was a title that I think they didn't really think would hit with Japan would hit America.
Yeah.
But
it's a big deal.
It hit hard here, and
I
think it was because of Smash Brothers, really, honestly.
It did, because I think if it weren't for that, people wouldn't know who characters like Ike or Marth are.
Right.
And let's be honest, come on, going back to Smash Brothers, seeing that fight between, you have Meta Knight standing alongside Marth and Ike, that's just epic right there.
Right.
And mind you, I didn't know who those characters were until Brawl. But still, getting a chance to see, but again, going back, like I said, seeing Meta Knight with Ike and Marth, and just facing off against, apparently the Taboo's forces, who look like knockoff versions of the Heartless from the Kingdom Hearts games. Again, really, they do. When you look at them, they look like Kingdom Hearts.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Yeah, it's just, again, hopefully, maybe one day we'll see a Kingdom Hearts game on a Nintendo system besides a handheld. But anyway, sorry, I have to clear my throat.
That's fine.
But anyway, but still, Smash Brothers really is a good entryway for a lot of characters, and again, Fire Emblem was one of them. Yeah. And now, lo and behold, now we have amiibos of certain characters that I didn't know anything about until now.
Right. And
so yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to playing those games. I'm hoping, I know that, the indie scene on the system has already started. There's a lot of indie games you can buy.
Good. There, one in particular that it's actually more of a nod to the original, Blaster Master Zero.
Yeah, which is done by the same guys who did Mega Man Zero and did
Inti Creates.
What is that game called? Gunvolt. Yeah, Gunvolt.
So Capcom and Inti Creates?
No, Capcom didn't do it, but Inti
Creates.
Inti
Yeah,
Creates.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, they're kind of an indie game scene. I'm hoping other games like Freedom Planet 2, which I'm excited about, and other games like maybe Shantae and other indie games that I know that Shovel Knight's already on the system.
Good.
So, you know, I'm hoping all these games will eventually come to the system. I'm kind of sad though that like it doesn't show like all my purchases from like Wii U or
yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a drag, but I wouldn't give up hope because who knows? I mean, I have a feeling that as time goes by, they will start doing that, but just not right now. But one thing that I do like though, in terms of going retro, is that they actually did something different this time, and actually they're putting out Neo Geo stuff, as you probably may have noticed. On there, and of course, you know, people who have the Switch, they have some Neo Geo titles. One of them being a personal favorite of mine, Metal Slug, or right now, Metal Slug 3. Now, granted, I have the anthology on my Wii, but still, the fact that they're putting it on there is a really nice touch because again, I was a huge fan of the Metal Slug games because I remember seeing the cabinets. But again, having all of them on an anthology is great, but still, the fact that they got one of them on there alongside King of Fighters and a few other titles is a really great way to kickstart the whole thing. And to do it in a way that's not expected. Because if they had decided to go ahead and do what they usually did with the previous Virtual Console releases and just put out the usual stuff, you know, at NES Donkey Kong Jr. and Wrecking Crew, Mario Brothers, blah blah blah, then okay, I'd be like, okay, that's to be expected. So, but yeah, for the eShop, again, I'm holding out hope that we will see the classic titles on there. I don't see any reason as to why that's the case, but you know, for me, in my case, I have actually been stocking up on Virtual Console titles for my Wii U for that reason until they make their way there. So yeah, I mean, again, great ways to get started, and again, just great. It definitely gives you time to really to devote to the games. Of course, granted, given you know everyone's work schedules and what have you, it's not exactly the easiest thing, but there's a lot of good games out there right now, and there's going to be plenty more coming down the pike. So, plenty to look forward to. And for me, in my case, I just got to stock up on amiibos. It's just a matter of just trying to find a spot to put them all in because, you know, until I get my room back, it's going to be an interesting time. But still, nevertheless, you know, just you know. Really, a lot of things to look forward to in the coming months.
Right. So I think. Last word about the Nintendo Switch. If you like Nintendo systems, if you really love Nintendo systems, this is a system for you. Now, if you don't feel that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is enough for you to get the system, which honestly it is, but if you don't feel that way, then wait, because I feel that this system is going to start really blowing up right after, once these games start coming out, especially games like Splatoon and Mario Kart 8, and especially when Super Mario Odyssey comes out. That's going to be just an awesome time, and I think if you want to get on the bandwagon now and start getting on it, do it, man. But if you want to be patient and see what else the system can do eventually, then yeah, I would definitely wait. I don't actually discredit you for that if you want to wait, because honestly, besides Breath of the Wild, there isn't a whole lot to play. Now, there's another game called The Binding of Isaac, which I've heard about, but I've never actually played, which I heard was also pretty good. It's kind of an indie title game that they made on for the Switch. And there's some other games that are for it, but I honestly, Breath of the Wild right now is pretty much the only game I really want to play, and that's pretty much the only game I am playing for my system, which is perfectly fine. So I highly suggest it. Alright. I think that pretty much does it for our review of the Switch, and also for the end of the podcast. So, first of all, we want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you for for listening to all of us ramble on about our favorite things. If you want to comment on any of the things we talked about, if you got your Nintendo Switch, you want to gush about it, or you want to even complain about it, you want to get, if we don't think we gave enough, bad things about it, hey, let us know. So we are part of the Arcade Archives Network at thearcadearchives.com. Again, that's thearcadearchives.com. We are a website that is kind of like a virtual arcade where people can come together and talk about things and review video games and talk about nostalgia and all kinds of different parts of our website. So please join us. And so if you're listening to us on the site, make sure you comment below. If you are listening to any of the podcatchers, please make sure you subscribe to us. Make sure you like us. I will try to get this onto iTunes as soon as I can. After this episode, I hope to have it up on iTunes, but we'll see. It all depends on my work schedule because I'm very busy. We'll try to get this on iTunes, but right now we're on Google Play, we're on Satchel, we're on a bunch of other different podcatchers. A lot of them are thanks to our friends at the Reasons I'm Broke podcast. So Daniel and Kelly, thank you so much for helping us out. You guys are awesome, so thank you so much. If you want to comment, if you want to find us on the internet, you can find me, Uber Nerd 527 at UberNerd527 on Twitter and Instagram. That's UBERNERD 527, and you can find me on Instagram and on Twitter. Feel free to message us, let us know what you think. What about you, Mr. Ultrasonic?
Yep. Well, you can reach me on Instagram under the pen name Ultrasonic9, as well as on Twitter under the same pen name, only it's on Twitter, it's basically spelled Ultra and then SNCPLYR9. And of course, you can find me also on fanfiction.net, where I have written a lot of fanfiction stories for various things. So yeah, again, if you like what you've heard, you can drop us a line, or if you just want to, just message any of us, you can find us in any of those ways.
Yeah. And of course, you can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/arcade1981. Again, that's facebook.com/arcade1981. Well, this does it for our podcast day. We thank you again for listening to us, guys. We'll be back next month with a brand new podcast and talking about brand new nerdy things that we're passionate about. So thank you again for listening, folks. And again, as always, we'd like to end our podcast by saying, keep playing like it's 1981.
Hey Arcaders, this is Ray Gunn from the Arcade Archives Network. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast that you're listening to. If you're listening on iTunes, please give it 5 stars. A lot of time and patience go into every podcast we do. 5-star ratings help us so we can continue giving you this quality entertainment every month. And don't forget to share us with your friends. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're over on our Facebook page, please like and share. Once again, we do this for you guys and we enjoy doing it every single month. So every little bit helps. So please go online and like us today. Thanks. Keep playing like it's 1981, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye now.
Message from headquarters. This is a Rebellion production and is part of the Arcade Archives Network. That is all.